Hello and welcome to this edition of Diaspora Central Spotlight. With me today, I have a new young face to represent the continent of Africa in the diaspora, USA. She is Miss African Union. Miss Africa Union. And she goes by the name of Lukwesa Morin. Lukwesa, welcome to Diaspora Central.
Hi, Gil. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for hosting me on the Diaspora Central show. I'm very excited.
Definitely. Look, one of the great things about you is the fact that you now represent the entire continent of Africa in the diaspora. And you are the first Miss African Union, correct?
Correct.
A lot of pressure?
You could say that.
Yeah.
a lot of different, I guess, dimensions to it, you could say, right? Different ways of going about your agenda and networking with people
Right.
That have like-minded goals. So it's very eye-opening.
Got you. Now, but we want to get into the nitty-gritty of who Lukwesa really is. We want to find out all those little tiny details that have actually put together this great person that today we know that represents us in the diaspora.
Sure thing.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get started. Where are you originally from, or where is your heritage from?
Sure thing. So my mother is Zambian, so I have African culture on my mother's side predominantly, and then my father is French-Togolese. So I was born in Lomé, but raised in the States. I really developed a passion for social impact, whether it's environmental, education, or even just poverty alleviation. I really wanted to do something from a very young age, just looking around at all the inequality. And so in college, I studied environmental studies in order to learn more about nature and how to better protect the earth that we live in, because we're very connected to it.
Got you.
And it's vital that we see that and we honor that connection. And then after college, I worked for the World Bank in international development. And that I would say that opened the floodgates, so to speak, in terms of really getting enveloped in a nation that is stricken with poverty, disaster effects with no mitigation methods in place. And so seeing that and working on an early warning mission that I did with the World Bank was very rewarding, because you not only can develop initiatives and strategies to tackle these kinds of issues, but you're seeing it happening and you're seeing the effect that it's having on the communities. Whether people are thanking you for being there and helping out with things, or something as small as imparting knowledge about these kind of topics to help people that live there. It goes such a long way. And so I realized that, as a continent, Africa, there's such a huge population of youth. If you look at the percentage of elders versus youth population, it's significantly disproportionate. And so I thought, what better way than to become involved in global organizations or initiatives that are helping to promote this agenda. Socioeconomic initiatives, education empowerment, but also gender inequality issues. And so onward, I had heard about Miss African Union from Ambassador Chihombori Quo. I'm sure that's a name that everyone in the diaspora should be familiar with.
Right. I think a lot of people also know her as Ambassador, or Her Excellency Arikana. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so she developed the idea of holding a pageant, not just for beauty purposes, but also to really show Africa. And also because pageants are just very universally popular. She thought that was a way that could grip the youth's attention. While it's focused on Agenda 2063, the issue was that youth were not participating in the advancement of Africa. And that was the biggest issue, whether it's business, whether it's supporting African-owned businesses, fashion, you name it. In any venue, there was a lack of youth participation. So this was held as a way to promote youth participation and get them excited about, creating and developing a new Africa. And my mission there was focused on Agenda 2063, which is the socioeconomic development of Africa.
Got you.
And within that mission, there are different strategies that were implemented in order to promote Africa, such as increasing intra-African trade.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see a lot of African countries that are creating all of these minerals and exports, but they're not really trading with one another.
Okay.
You know, it's either going to China or Russia or the US, but it needs to kind of come from within and have this cross collaboration amongst different African countries, because that's how you can build each other up.
Indeed.
And as we all know, a lot of the African countries are very close to each other. So imagine how much of a difference that would make if, rather than trading or exchanging exports and imports with another country, you know, in an already developed nations, you're doing it amongst your own kind.
Right.
And so our whole message was to really focus internally and grow from within, as opposed to, I guess, resourcing out.
Got you.
Because what happens when you do that, it creates a cyclical process, right? Where you're going in, it's coming back out, but it's also going back in.
Right.
And that's what, from an economic standpoint, that's what Africa lacks.
Right. Now, how old were you? How old were you the last time? I don't want to say the last time, actually. How old were you the first time you left the continent?
I was about 3 years old.
You were about 3 years
young.
Yeah. So, and then when did you go back the first time?
I went back when I was about 11.
Okay. And what was your experience like once you got back?
It was incredible. Again, it was an eye opener, just seeing the differences in how I was living life in the States versus how life is lived in some of these areas.
Right.
And of course, you know, you don't want to go off of the media that tries to portray Africa as this devastated, you know, disoriented area, because there are gorgeous parts of every nation in Africa.
Indeed.
But it was just startling to see the lack of resources in comparison, and just how like the mindset of people where they feel like they're impoverished, and not all people, but you see a lot where people kind of mold themselves to that stereotype, if that makes sense.
Right. Right.
When there's so much potential there's brilliance there, but it's sort of downplayed, especially in the Western media, about you know, what potential African people have, and what can be used and utilized in the African country. Right. So to me, that was the biggest startling difference I noticed. It's just the difference in mindset. And I also noticed the culture in Africa. Okay. I would say that there's so much more culture there than in the States. You know, I feel that the U.S. is more of a mix of all of these different cultures in one. Right. But one thing that really shined out to me when I visited was just there's so much culture, and there's so much patriotism. There's, you know, whether it's wearing African clothing, the music, it's so custom to that nation or that region. And that's what I loved.
A lot of heritage out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And and after you go back at 11 years old, the next time you go back is when you are crowned Miss African Union Queen. Or have you gone back already after being crowned?
I actually went back when I was working with the World Bank. So that was in 2016.
Okay.
And I actually worked there abroad for a couple of, it was like a month altogether. I went back and forth.
Got you.
You know, one time in May and then another time in July.
Yeah.
And so it was back and forth. But then the next time I went was to represent Miss African Union. Right. In Addis Ababa.
Yeah. So you go back as the representative of the African diaspora.
Absolutely.
Right. And of course, trust you and me, we all feel very well represented with you. Work ethic, good platform, eloquent, beautiful.
Thank you.
Hey, that is definitely everything that the diaspora is. And
facts.
Right. As a true believer in diaspora culture, I honestly believe that the diaspora now has developed its own culture, right, in which we have basically understood that, you know what, we have become the hub between what used to be the American culture and the African culture. So we members of the diaspora now understand our position, and we able to manage and play well within it, right? To the point that our ability to network with each other has become much greater. Our ability to see the flaws even within the continent and how we can assist the continent to improve itself also is becoming much better. And you definitely are one of the persons that he is the key ambassador to both perspectives, right? When you there, you're the ambassador for us, and when you here, you're the ambassador for them. Now,
absolutely, and that's the beautiful thing about it.
Mm-hmm. No, go ahead.
That it's so intertwined, right? So like I think that in previous decades, you had a lot of misunderstanding, right? The culture for Black Americans in America is so different than the culture that Africans are raised up with in their country. And so I think the combining of that and just the mix of ideas and love and passion towards building the continent, it goes so much further because there's no more division. There's no, well, I'm Black American, I'm not African, or I'm African, I'm not Black American. It's like, what's the difference? You know what I mean? We all come from the same motherland. We all breathe the same oxygen. We all bleed when we're cut. Indeed. I mean, if you look at just the ways in which division happens, right? It's all these societal ideas or constructs. It takes away from what's important, which is unification.
Right. Definitely true. And let's take a very quick break because we want to show a few images of Africa, and we'll be right back in the next few minutes. All right, and we are back. If you have just joined us, you are still watching Diaspora Central and my very beautiful guest, Lukwesa Morin, by way of Zambia and Togo. Diaspora, stand up, because the most beautiful woman, your queen of the diaspora, is in the building. Lukwesa, welcome to Diaspora Central.
Hello, happy to be back.
Yeah. Everyone has people in their lives and moments that define them, and people that actually inspire them to become who they become. Who were the most inspirational people in your life?
So that's a beautiful question. I actually get sentimental thinking about it. So my mother, first and foremost, and I know a lot of people say that, my mom or my dad, but the strength that I have to continue and push forward, even in the face of adversity at this age, comes directly from my mother. She was a single parent raising both my brother and I 2 years apart, so it couldn't have been easy, while also doing medical school to become a physician. And she really instilled love, compassion. She never raised her voice. She never hit us. She would just speak to us like we were adults, even when we were kids. And I think that really benefited my level of maturity, understanding humans more, as well as emotional intelligence. And she always championed me. Whether it's me wanting to do sports or me wanting to go into women and gender studies, which I did at one point during college, which I took on as a minor. But my biggest break came through with the social impact aspect, and she just championed me on.
Right.
And I also had a college professor when I was at Gettysburg College who, you know, she was not just a teacher, but truly a mentor.
Okay.
And, you know, I would stay after class sometimes with her and just go over, you know, what's due the next week or assignments. And she looked at me, and I'll never forget this. She looked at me and she said, you know, what you're studying is important here. Yes, we're studying basically renewable energy and studying, you know, the ice caps melting and global warming.
Right.
And what she said to me is, you know, this stuff may be important, but what you're going to do, it was very prophetic. She said, what you're going to do is going to be something that is so close to your heart, and it's going to impact millions. And if you could take that passion, you know, within this work, within your writing that you do, and push it towards something of social impact, whether it's saving the environment or whether it's helping people. She told me I had such a powerful way of writing and speaking, and to use that. She said, don't let it go to waste. You know, don't set the bar here.
Right.
Don't set it sky high. You know, the sky is limitless. Set it there because the world needs that from you.
Right.
And I just, thinking back, I just get very sentimental thinking about that.
Yeah.
And kind of seeing where I am today with everything and everything she said, it's like it's coming to fruition.
That's good. That's great, because at the end of the day, it's really about no glass ceilings. It is about being limitless. It's about fulfilling your full potential, whatever that may be, right? Because society does have the tendency of sometimes attempting to either limit us by cubbyholing us into specific positions that they feel that these are the positions that we should play. You have actually had the opportunity of being placed right now in a position in which you have to champion several great agendas for the continent and also for the diaspora. Some of the challenges that you sometimes encounter, maybe within the diaspora community, what are they, and how do you sometimes pass them?
That's a great question. So some of the challenges, just for some context, I am a global ambassador right now, using my title to raise awareness for literacy.
Okay.
So like in Uganda, I help out with the Literate Earth Project. And what they do is they send books to Africa and set up libraries.
Okay.
And then they also coordinate teachers that teach children how to read and write. And so there are over 18 libraries that they have set up in Uganda.
Wow.
Which is a huge feat for this type of organization.
Yes.
Because it's all networking, it's all partnering with donors that are also passionate about this mission. And as well as the master plan, which is United Nations, it's kind of a predecessor of United Nations education initiatives, focused on SDG, which is Sustainable Development Goal number 5. So I'm a chief delegate for that organization as well. And I would say the biggest challenges are coordination in terms of how do you take a vision and get other people to not only see that vision, but do their part to help. Right. Because in our society today, everything is very much, sped up in terms of time. People are busy. People may be interested, but not interested enough to kind of put that effort forward. And especially in COVID, this pandemic, it's wreaked havoc on social interaction. And so that would be the biggest challenge facing us right now. But in addition to the mindset, right, of people in the diaspora, that you said it was a mix of, Indigenous Africans or Africans raised in America, Black Americans. It's getting them to have that kind of solidarity where they're coming together, that because the platform is very scarce. It's very sparse. Like, for instance, in DC, there's a huge following of people in the diaspora. And I know like places like Houston and other regions. But I think that if we could grow that, if we could grow those numbers and actually get youth focused on organizations such as the Literate Earth Project or even All African Students Union, which is an organization that I also am a speaker for. And if we could do that and come together on a platform, I think that would be very monumental.
Right.
Because a lot of people want to help and get involved. They just don't know how. They don't have the tools to see, you know, organizations like this exist. You know,
Right.
you always hear about UN or World Bank, but there's so many other organizations.
Right, small community level organizations. Right.
And so I really think,
yeah, and as we're talking about that, I definitely want to take this opportunity also to introduce one of these organizations to you that I'm not sure you may already know of, but that's the said Pan-African Library in Houston, Texas. I've been in and out of Houston for the last probably 10 years. And in all honesty, I only found out about them last year. And that is one of those places. I mean, you mentioned something about me by saying that, you know, my approach seems to be very holistic, very calm. You get that level of peace. That's the type of peace that I get when I am in that environment. It's like so full of history, so full of knowledge, so full of understanding. It's one of those places where you can actually go sit down and probably sit there for hours and not realize that that the time is still ticking, right? Because you get taken by just about everything. But the said institute, which is the Pan-African Library in Houston, is definitely one of the places that I would suggest you probably check out. And in all honesty, I will even try to connect you both, because the initiative that you have for the continent and for the Diaspora USA, may even be able to assist somehow, because they do real African storytelling where people sit in a circle and someone will tell a story. It's just a very beautiful place, a very unique place. But I wanna kind of get back to your platform, the youth, and youth leadership.
I felt what you meant.
Yeah, the youth leadership portion of your reign, or of your platform. And first, let me start by saying that it is something that you embody very well, because you are very eloquent, you're very knowledgeable, you assertive. In all honesty, for someone that does not know you, may think that you are much older than you are based on on the things you say and on the way you speak. You speak wisdom. That's what I am saying. You speak wisdom, right? That was my first impression of you, and I was like, okay, definitely we have a real good pillar here. We have a good pillar, and we definitely need to build some sort of a support system around it. Because in all honesty, I believe that people like you are important for our community, because sometimes the stereotypes that I put out there about the African community is that all we do is nothing else but party all day long, right? We all about nothing but nightclubs. Yeah. We all about nothing but drinking and partying and showing off.
Exactly.
Right? We care about nothing else with those things. But yet we actually have leaders such as yourself, you know, individuals who are actually trying to create change, not only in the diaspora, but also in the continent. Okay.
Right.
As one of those leaders, how do you sometimes manage the counter forces that come with it? And what, in your opinion, can some of us in the community do to facilitate your ability to manage those counter forces?
That's a fantastic question. So it's so ingrained within the I guess the social consciousness. Mm-hmm. It's such an ingrained I'm going to call it a disease, really. It's a disease of the mind. I think that's really, and it's not even necessarily the fault of Africans, you know, or even in the diaspora. It's something that's been put there by colonialism. Mm-hmm. You look at the Berlin Conference, you know, when all the African regions were just divided, and they didn't have any more access to their own resources or economic empowerment. Mm-hmm. You look at all the devastation that the continent has been through, and you know, even to be where we are today with all of these youth leaders and organizations coming together to finally say, you know what, this is it. You know, we're done being controlled. We're done being exploited. We're done being used. So I think it starts with the mentality where you say, hey, maybe this has been this way for X amount of years, but it doesn't have to continue.
Right.
And our generation, you know, people born in the 70s, 80s, 90s, that's the time for us to really just break through and come forward with that urgency. I think urgency is very important, where you're not focused on the stereotypes. You're not focused on what it is you're being told you can't do, you know, because a lot of these messages that we get from the media, the culture, the music, even the images we see on television, those are very, they're what's the word I'm thinking of? They're incapacitating. You know, it's like your whole figure and you're just getting chopped down line by line, you know, stab by stab. I know it sounds very vile, but in a sense, that's what it's doing.
No,
that's exactly what it's doing.
It definitely does that. It does that. It does that not only to the. I mean, it does that to the community and to and a lot of times even does that to individuals, because before you know, you then have individuals with very low self-esteem, because they don't find the ability to fulfill first their own needs, and then the needs of their loved ones, and second, they find themselves disenfranchised from the same communities that they are a part of, right?
Absolutely.
And all you need, right? And a lot of times, all you need to do in order to beat an individual is to disenfranchise him or her from the same community that he is a part of, because that automatically creates an issue. But we need to take another break, and I want to come back and continue the conversation. But let's take another quick break and kind of showcase a little more, a few more images of any of your stuff, or of Africa, anything beautiful, anything about Africa today, because after all, we have the queen, the reigning queen of the African Union in the building, so we can showcase anything about Africa that we can. And we'll be right back. This is Diaspora Central with Gil Ingles.
On Friday night, December 6th, history was made in a big way in Washington, D.C., as the first ever Miss African Union Diaspora was elected on American soil. The winner, 26-year-old Lukwesa Morin, is a student at Johns Hopkins School of Public Policy. She was born in Togo of a Zambian mother and a French father. As she accepted her crown with humility from King Peggy IV, Lukwesa told reporter Ben Bongoa that she wants to fight literacy and child malnutrition, among other challenges facing Africa.
I'm very grateful for the judges and everyone that came out to watch this wonderful event. I'm grateful for the sisterhood and warmth here. I'm grateful for my director who coached me on how to walk, what to wear, grabbing things when I had to stand up, the mission of the AU, and the fact that I'm the first ever. I'm sorry, it's overwhelming.
On her way to be crowned, Lukwesa competed with contestants from 16 other countries, including Uganda and Guinea, who won first and second runner-up respectively. Each contestant competed in areas ranging from education and healthcare to social justice before taking questions from the jury related to African history. Miss African Union Diaspora is the first competition of its kind in the United States, and it brought together hundreds of guests, including several ambassadors. There were speeches, food, music, and entertainment, as well as vibrant displays of visual art, handcrafts, and other exhibits from different countries in Africa.
And we are back. If you have just joined us, you are now watching Diaspora Central with Gil Ingles, and my guest today is the beautiful, the powerful, the eloquent, the queen of the African Union, which right now also represents us and is doing a few things with the United Nations. Lukwesa Morin. Togo and Zambia, stand up, because your queen is in the building. Talk to us about the engagement that you have going on right now with the United Nations, which is a good thing, because we do need that level of representation how did that come about, and what was the journey?
So through networking, this especially at the AU Summit in February of 2019, it was a 32nd assembly of the heads of states, as well as the African Union. So through that, I got to networking with different parliamentarians, different people in Congress from the U.S. It was a huge global event that took place in Addis Ababa. And so I collected so many business cards. It couldn't fit in my purse. So I had a small purse, but it was a very big, Rolex of different contacts. Right. And one day I just sat down looking through the cards, just seeing what appealed to me, just kind of going off of my instinct, like, who should I contact? How do I get my foot in the door with bigger initiatives and even smaller ones, but things that seemed promising to me, or areas where they wanted a global ambassador or someone to represent them in this way.
Right.
And so one of the people that I networked with was basically, he was president for the All African Students Union. And I believe he's based in New York, but he had contacted a colleague of his who works with the master plan. And the master plan is sponsored by multiple countries, European countries, African countries, and it was a subcategory of the United Nations goal for sustainable economic development. And so one of the sustainable development goals within that plan was education, and that was SDG number 5. And so Christo Thomas, who is the founder / president / CEO of the organization, he had Googled me and reached out to me and said, hi, my name is so-and-so, and we were reading about your platform and basically wanted to offer an invite to talk with them more about this program and initiative and what they're looking to build towards. And so just hearing about all of their ideas and programs and how they have so many youth members involved. I mean, it's insane. It's like over 2,000 youth members. Places like Thailand, Ecuador. You have you just had so many different Canada. You had so many youth in political positions of power on these calls, and I thought, what an amazing global initiative to become a part of. You had honoraries, dignitaries. You had ambassadors coming on these calls during different events, like special events that were planned with the master plan. And they usually gather in New York, but because of COVID, everything has been remote.
Right.
And so our aim is to increase education access, not even just to Africa, but all over the world. But we do pay particular attention to underdeveloped nations, because just the gap in the lack of resources and the urgency that's needed. And so it's very exciting, because right now we're going through different proposals where it's not just education, but it's including other aspects like education, as well as sports, right? Because sports is such a huge vehicle in Africa.
Right.
A lot of people love football.
Yep.
And one of the people I actually met and am now friends with was I met FIFA president Gianni Infantino when I was in Addis Ababa, but I also met his chief of staff, who's now the Secretary General for FIFA, Matthias Grafstrom.
Okay.
And so we had just talked about all these different initiatives and how sports can be used as a tool in addition to mental health.
Right.
Because if you look at mental health, it's directly correlated with physical activity.
Yes, indeed.
And so that's one of the ways that the master plan is looking to branch out through, and try to partner with these much more prominent organizations where youth are aware. A lot of youth, there's probably not one youth population that doesn't know about FIFA,
right,
or doesn't know about sports.
Right, that is true.
So we're thinking, how do we use the things that our society is targeting and promoting? Right. How do we use that to our benefit?
Yeah. So basically, engaging them at a level or at a venue in which they already used to being engaged in, and just introduce the new concepts and the new ideas to them.
That's exactly
Right.
right.
And, yeah,
like
I think
how do you reverse the conditioning in a way that's beneficial?
Indeed, and that's one of that's a great, a real great thing, because
Yeah,
because you
it's
just
very exciting.
you just introduced something to me that I didn't know about, the master plan. See, it's something that I didn't know about. So we all gonna have those Googleables out of this conversation, and that's what I kind of really want to do, because the purpose of Diaspora Central, aside from entertaining, educating, informing, and inspiring, is really to empower. Okay. As Miss African Union, you had the opportunity to visit Ethiopia. I'm sure that it was your first time in that country.
Definitely.
Right. Yeah, I've been to Ethiopia also. Great country. I tell you, the first thing that I admired about that country was the fact that from the plane, as we were landing, I looked down, and looks like the soil is black. Right.
Yeah.
It was all black soil. Something.
There's a lot of black soil.
Right. In Southern
right.
Africa is normally yellowish, like light brown. In Ethiopia was like really like dark black. What was the one thing about Ethiopia that caught your eye as you were landing, or the first thing that caught your eye and made you feel like, wow, okay, this is sort of different?
I would say coming into Addis Ababa, in and of itself, you know, because I had these ideas or preconceived ideas about what does Ethiopia look like?
Right.
And you see on television, again, through the media, and it's kind of depicting of African nations. I expected a lot more wasteland and not as developed buildings.
Yeah.
And it was shocking to realize that Addis Ababa itself is one of the most well-known international hubs for business.
Yes.
You know, a lot of international people coming in, a lot of conferences are held there.
Yes.
So for me, that was extremely shocking to see and realize, but also just the way that they are, you know, that their kindness, their generosity, their compassion. It was just such a group of, and you could feel the love coming from them, saying hi or looking at you and smiling, even if they don't know you, how they just take you in, especially, if you're from a different country. And you just see a lot of that you don't really get here in the States. You don't really sense that warmth or that embrace from people here. Yeah,
indeed. I'll tell you that I have great stories about Ethiopia. That are gracious. That circle out there that doesn't have any stop signs. Where I was staying at that Sheraton complex in Addis.
Oh, I love the Sheraton.
Right, right, and I spent a lot of time in that courtyard because I just thought that it was the most peaceful. All those rose bushes and the plants and all that, right? Very relaxing, very, very calm. It's like you take your laptop, you sit down, and you lose yourself. But the first time we went through that circle, it was so interesting because we're sitting in the car and the driver is just going, right? And I can see that he's approaching some sort of a turnabout or turnaround, and this guy is not slowing down. And I'm
oh man, I have car stories for days. I tell you, I thought I was gonna die.
I'm telling you, it comes to find out. I mean, years later, right? Years later, about a year ago, I'm watching television. And someone, and I flip into, I don't know if it was television, if it was YouTube. All I know is I flip into this one thing in which they're showing that same turnabout as being one of the ones in the world in which accidents actually don't happen. And they don't even have stop signs to get into it. So everyone in that city has adapted to drive around that circle and know when to get in and get out without causing major accident. So that was one of my
shocking.
Yeah, that was one of my funny stories.
When you bring that up, I can't even believe I overlooked that aspect of
Right.
it. I just remember getting into the car and thinking like, okay, if I die today, like that's fine. I will have visited. I will have been here.
Right.
You know, that is shocking.
Yeah.
And they even switch lanes with no. I mean, there's just
Yeah.
no indication.
Yeah,
It's
no,
just
they
whatever goes.
Yeah, they understand the way they drive, and I mean, after a few days I kind of got used to it, but there was there was definitely one of those. Yeah, there was one of those things. So back to your platform as Miss African Union. And now also as someone that is actually running initiatives for the United Nations, and as a leader of our community, what are some of the initiatives that we can help you bring forth or carry through in the process of your tasks, of going through your everyday tasks? I guess in the process of you going through your everyday tasks, what are some of those things that you could probably delegate to us? And by us, I mean us, the community, to kind of carry forth, or how can we better assist you?
That's a beautiful question. I would say that in terms of assisting, you know, we're always looking to have kind of youth chats on ideas that can be put forward, like in terms of joining local organizations, you know, because everyone is in different countries, different areas, but joining local or even national organizations within their respective countries that are focused on literacy, that are focused on alleviation of poverty in different countries. And it helps to focus on one or two countries and then to kind of build from that. Because I feel that a lot of times some people will like spare themselves thin across doing so many different things, so many different areas, that there's no time to build in one region. So I think that if all the youth, and I was just going to say, like, I was going to give my contact information as well.
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll definitely do that.
You can actually give us the contact information also, and we'll make sure that your contact information, as a matter of fact, is showing as sticker lines on the program. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I was going to say is, you know, all these issues that are going on, all these causes, people are so passionate about one or another. And so I think that allocating, like if someone were to come to me and say, hey, I want to help out with, you know, women equality or female empowerment, then I would kind of guide that person to an organization that I know deals with that, and find a way to support as well as guide that person through the process, so that organization gets that assistance, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
And so if somebody else were to say, hey, you know, I want to help with your literacy, because my platform right now is focused on literacy, education, as well as gender equality. And not to say that I don't get involved in the other things, but as my concentration for right now, that's where my head is at.
Right, that's your focus.
But there's absolutely, and there's so many other things that youth can do. So I would definitely encourage and invite you all to contact me regarding your specific areas or a cause of concern. Say, yeah, I really want to get involved in this, and I can definitely guide you, or even bring you along to a meeting that I have maybe on education or gender inequality issues, or even like or even sitting in a virtual conference like we've done before, just so they get firsthand experience at what kind of things people are doing and how they can actually go forward in making that impact.
Definitely good information.
Absolutely.
Right there.
I am all ears. I don't care if my inbox explodes. I'll answer all your questions.
There you go. That is good information and good to hear. Now I'm gonna go into something that may be a little bit sensitive, but also necessary, because it is part of everyday life. Now, as a young woman in a position of leadership for the African continent, as a young woman that grew up in the United States of America as African, how difficult was it for you to manage sometimes even the controversy of you being multiracial child, right? And having
Correct.
to manage that pushback, because people sometimes do that, and we have several children in the same position that you are. So I'm asking this question now from a perspective of you being able to empower them to be able to sustain the pushback that they may encounter just because they don't look as dark or as light as somebody else. How can they manage that in a way to come out as well as you did? What are some of the things that should even be in place? And you may, right now you could be talking not only to children, but also to parents, because sometimes parenting in itself also makes a huge difference. Of course, it made a major difference in your case, which is a good thing. So talk to us, give us a little bit of advice here.
I would love to. So that is a challenge that I had faced, is kind of, you have this kind of confused identity where it's you're too black for the white kids, but you're too white for the black kids. So I was kind of in the middle of that, should I go here or should I? Growing up, I'd get told a lot by Black American children that were just in my neighborhood, or even people I'd come across while out, or at the mall or whatever. Oh, you talk like you're white. So it's very unnerving, because you realize how sensitive the minds of youth and just people in general, right? The conditioning that takes place, where we have a constant need to label everything and then divide everything. Like, what is this label? What is this division? It's all an illusion. Right. The only thing that's real is that we're all connected. It doesn't matter if we're black, we're white, we're mixed. And I think that's the issue that a lot of different cultures, like within the Black community, had struggled with in the past. Not all, but I know there are a few common themes where it was, oh, like you're African. What do you know about Black American culture? Right. Or you're Black American. You don't know anything about African culture, so you can't. We don't identify ourselves with you. Right. Or you don't eat the same food, therefore, you're weird to us. Or you don't wear the same clothing, so you're not worthy. And it begins with labeling. And I think that for me, especially at a young age, you're very impressionable, but as you start to mature, and it also deals with parenting, like you said, where you have to have that need and that urge to make sure that your children, first and foremost, understand who they are without those labels. Indeed. So, you're not, that's why I don't like the term, where it's like you're this or you're that, therefore you're this. Right. You have to just teach them that all they are is love, because that's the only thing that exists. Everything else is an illusion. Right. Everything else, that's anger, that's jealousy, that's division, it stems from hate, and hate stems from fear. Right. So you're entertaining something and you're afraid of something that doesn't even exist. And when you learn to untangle all of those mental thought constructs that are formed, right. And not even by you, it's just the culture you grew up in. Yeah, society's conditioning. Exactly. What elders told you, you can't do this, or you're not worthy, you're not smart enough, you're not, you can't write well, so you can't do this, you can't do that. There's so much negativity that gets passed down, not just from families, but from friends, from peers. And so what you do is just understand what those words are. They're just words. Right. They have no meaning, right? It's an illusion. When you realize, and this is, I don't want to go into spirituality too much with this, because, I digress, but for me, that was where I found myself, was in spirituality, was in realizing you're not a human being. You're a spiritual being having a human experience. And by that, what I mean is that we're all connected at a spiritual level. We're all one, we're all energy. Right. And this is just, our bodies are simply a vessel that contains this energy. Indeed. But what do you think that energy is? It's creative force, it's divinity, it's consciousness. And that's how we're all connected. We're just a focal point at which matter, the solidness of who we are decided to materialize. But without the body, you go back into that essence, that godlike consciousness. And I think getting children at a very early age to understand that that's who they are, and that all of these labels are just societal constructs. I mean, get them to see past the illusion, because that's all it is. And that, if somebody wants to say you're this or that, it has nothing to do with you and absolutely everything to do with that other person. Right. Because people are your mirrors. Indeed. And what you're reflecting back to them is simply their own consciousness. It's like it's like happy people don't go around making people miserable. Right. Only unhappy people do that. So why would a comment someone else is saying from a place of their own misery, why would that affect you? Why would you let that bother you? Indeed. When it's their own consciousness saying that to you. Right. It shows you their relationship with their selves. Right. So if they want to say, hey, you're mixed and you can't be accepted, or you can't go this way or that way, that's their own separation and division that they're dealing with within themselves. Indeed. It has nothing to do with you. Indeed. That is definitely great to understand, because the I guess the core thing to take out of there is basically do not allow anyone else's definition of you determine who you really are, or anyone else's definition of themselves determine who you are. Because after all, you are your own vessel of godly energy that was put in this earth to share what is being given to you. Correct. Yeah, I think you're born for a purpose. Don't down yourself. The world needs from you what you were born here to do. Indeed. I think we just that was a portion of our preaching segment. So sorry about that. It's very long-winded. No. That's what we need. I mean, we empowering people, so we need those kind of long-winded interventions sometimes, because in order to empower, we need to make sure that we understand what we're empowering. Right. Got caught in the spirit. right. And that was a good thing. That was really a good thing. Now, anything else that you would like to add? Anything that we haven't touched on? Anything that you would like to talk about? Because we now getting close to that time in which I have to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for accepting our invitation, and I hope you make a promise that you will be back soon, so that we can talk a little bit more. In all honesty, it takes people like you in our community to be able to ensure that the younger children do have positive influences that they can look at, right? Because sometimes there's so much negative energy around that it becomes difficult to see the positiveness beyond that negative energy. So trying to force those, in other words, I'm trying to bring you into that environment that they probably used to look at, so that they can somewhat be a bit influenced by something positive. So if you make the promise that you will be back, I would definitely appreciate it. Oh, I am more than honored to be back quarterly. Whenever you need me, I'm here. Thank you. This is one of the things I enjoy doing is outreach. How do you get across to the audience? So organizations like Diaspora Central, not organization, I should say stations, right? Yeah, indeed. Is that more politically correct? Platforms. Yeah. Such as Diaspora Central, and again, other local organizations or national, or that's where it starts. It's grassroots. It's getting the community involved and your peers. Right. So I'm happy to be back as many times as you need. Okay, all right. I definitely appreciate that. Now we're going to go into something which is very quick, and this is where we basically try to close the program on an up and up, because Diaspora Central, it's all about showcasing diaspora culture and talent. So let's go into your culture, which we have already touched on a little bit. So one thing about African culture that you believe that you will have for the rest of your life. Ooh. This is tricky, because I'm thinking of the food. I'm thinking of the dancing. Zambia is very dance heavy. Yeah, I love dancing. It's one of my favorite things. Okay. This is very tricky. Yeah. I would say one thing that I would carry with me for the rest of my life, in terms of culture. Yeah. is is the music.
The music.
You know, it's the music.
Yeah, the sound.
The sound, yeah. Right? The rhythm, the kind of songwriting. I have a very creative streak.
Oh, okay. Do you write?
My mother.
Do you write music also?
I do. I songwrite. I love singing.
You also sing.
I love playing instrumentals.
Okay.
I do a lot of mixes. Like I do soul, you know, indie
do you play?
Soul.
What instruments do you play?
I used to play violin.
Oh, wow. Okay, great.
And now I'm learning guitar. So I'm very excited about that.
Okay, let me see your fingers. Hold on. Let me see your fingertips. Let's see the the fingertips. So you already got the calluses? Cuz see I kind of
yeah. See them here?
You got a bit of calluses, huh? That's great. Yeah,
it's like the pick, right?
But
not always.
Nah, that's pretty great. Let's go. Okay. One thing about Africa that you would like to let everyone that you come across know that you think they may not know. Something great about Africa.
Africa it's beyond words, right? Mm-hmm. Getting there, just getting off that plane, whether it's Ethiopia, Botswana, Johannesburg, it's the energy, right? It's like you're kind of being lifted. It's the burdens being lifted, whether it's going for vacation or a work travel trip. So first and foremost, I would say it's the environment. It's the energy you feel when you're there. You feel more calm, you feel relaxed, because that is how the people are. There's not this rat race. There's not this, chaotic energy of having to get from point A to point B or being in competition, right? Everything is so much more laid back. It's much easier to really be yourself, I feel. And the one thing that I really want people to know is when you get there, you're not going to see what you see in the media. I mean, right. It's just, sure, if you go to those parts, but that's how it is anywhere. Right. The poor parts of America look worse than some poor parts of Africa. So, it's a
balance. Good things and bad things.
Me.
Yeah.
And it really bothers me that they live with these stereotypes, because right. people don't always have the luxury of traveling to Africa. Right. But that's the one thing I would really just get into their minds, that what you see is not what the reality is.
Got you. Okay. Now, one thing about the diaspora, and specifically Diaspora USA, since this is your home, that you definitely want to relate to Africans. One thing that you believe that is great about the diaspora that you would like to relate to Africans, what would that be?
I think it's so wonderful that, the diaspora and people who are living in the States, they have this double experience and they can have that connection with Africa, although they're living here, and vice versa. Like, I feel that there's so much you can learn from people that are born and raised in Africa and living there, and then people that are, born or raised in the States. There's so much of an exchange that can take place, especially with music. You have like hip hop here, you have different modes of hip hop there, right? It's kind of different dimensions of the same thing,
right.
Different forms,
right.
But it's all coming from one expression.
Got you.
And so I think that's the beautiful thing about it is just that, while, in Africa, they have their own culture, right. There's also a certain type of culture within the Black American community. Mm-hmm. And I think when those mesh together, even telling people in the diaspora, like, hey, like, they're no different from you. It's right. just different expressions.
Yeah. So the diversity.
I love the food and the music. I would say food and music are one way that they both can really connect.
Right, definitely. Now, the one question that most of our male fans are definitely asking, and you are very beautiful. I don't blame them for that. So I have to ask the question: are you single?
I am single.
All right, she is single, so you better shoot your shot. Don't mess around, playing around. You already got the cues of what she really wants. But let me see. Actually, maybe I should ask her. Okay, so what should the right person, right, Mr. Right, what should he have in order to make sure that he can conquer the heart of the lady that represents the African diaspora as our queen for the African Union?
So I don't have I don't have like this laundry list, like a lot of
no requirements.
That I wouldn't say it's a laundry list.
Okay.
One of the main things that I feel is people's energy. You know, I'm empathic. I'm very empathic.
Okay.
So with that comes the ability. I kind of feel. I'm not kind of. It's just it is what it is. I feel people's emotions when I'm around them,
right.
And sometimes I can take that on as my own. And so for me, it's not so much seeing a picture and thinking, oh, this person's attractive. Like, right. I really want to meet him. Like, sure, you can think that, but it doesn't stick.
Right.
But when you meet the person, it could be an entirely different experience. And people don't realize it's because of the energy exchange that's taking place.
Right.
So for me, it's more so like, what do you feel like? Right. You know what I mean? Okay. If that makes sense.
So,
what do you feel like?
So if they come to you, they got to come to you with the very pure, very secure, very sure, very set, very solid level of energy, because otherwise don't even shoot, because you're just going to miss.
I would say that's a bit of it, but that is what I'm saying. But not to say like anyone has to be perfect,
right?
But I definitely want someone with good intentions.
There you know,
purity of heart, like what you mentioned. You know, do you seek to do well, you know, onto others, right, as you would have them do onto you? Just the golden rule.
Indeed.
I just want a kind person, really.
There you go.
You know, whether you're successful or not, that's relative, right?
Yeah.
Because I could send over a friend of mine, a guy who makes, I don't know,
right,
100,000 a year.
Right.
Oh, that's not enough. You know, so it's very relative.
Right. And in the right environment, with the right empowerment, anyone with good intentions and with the intention of becoming successful can become successful. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. You get it. That is beautifully said. Right. I couldn't have said that better myself, actually.
Thank you.
That's what it is. And it comes from the energy, right?
Yeah. I'm trying to help them, and on the same note, protect you, because here's what we need to do. See, you are a pillar in this community, so we have to make sure that whoever gets with you, he's got to be right for you, because they can't mess up a pillar that holds our community up.
You are so sweet. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's like all of you get invites to the wedding.
There you go. But look, I definitely appreciate you taking a few minutes of your day to join us. Actually, an hour out of your day to join us. I can't thank you enough for being humble enough to do that. To us, is definitely a portion of our bucket list as far as this platform is concerned, because like I said, I couldn't close season 1 without getting the opportunity to talk to you, because after all, you represent us at that big table, both at the African Union and at the United Nations. And for that, thank you for being that person. Thank you for accepting that challenge. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Well, no, it's definitely a pleasure. Consider this place home. Diaspora Central is your home, and we hope to have you back soon. So
I will.
Indeed. So, and for all those of you that have taken time out of your day to listen to this great interview, definitely a lot of Googleable instances. So make sure that you go down, subscribe, contact her. Like she said, she does not care if her mailbox explodes. Send her questions, ask her questions, take this opportunity to empower yourself. And as I always say, remember one thing as you're doing that: if we don't do it for ourselves, who will? This has been our time. Thank you for watching Diaspora Central. Until next time, you take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye.